Friction is one of the factors and also the main reason why objects that are moving will eventually stop, and objects that are at rest or is not moving will eventually move due to friction. So that's it. That's the main essence of friction. And the examples of these objects that are moving, let's say you roll a ball. As you roll the ball, what will happen? Of course, it will roll until such time that it will eventually stop. So the main reason why this ball stop as you roll this ball down the incline, it's because of the friction. Friction only happens if there is a motion, and also if there is an impending motion. Meaning, if this ball will about to roll it and it is not yet rolling, murol siya because there is an impending motion. Murabag ka ng wheels sa sakyanan bitaw. Imagine nimo. Unsa mahinungdan nga nung mo andar na siya or mo move siya other place. It's because the tires and the road or the surface nga nakadikit ang ligid into kay na ay friction between that surfaces. Bale, friction happens if there is any surfaces, if there is at least two surfaces that are in contact, there is a friction on that. Mo siya pinakatiman eh. Then before going to the formula, let's try to imagine first a car that is in ice or kanang snowy place. Di ko kabalo mo draw og car, basta man siya. Naano na to. Basta ang ato ra kay natay concept a car na dira versus a car na nasa dry land. So intuitively, diba kung imo siyang imaginon, mas dali mo tulin ning mukabkab dayon ning ligid ani niya paana versus diri sa ice. Because in the ice, less ang friction, while in this dry land, the friction is greater. So mo nang mas paspas ni siyang makastart versus naa sa ice. So the measure of how less or how great or how more the friction between two surfaces in contact is what we call mu. The mu here in this formula, the formula of friction is F is equal to mu times the normal reaction of the surface, is the coefficient of friction. This is actually the coefficient of friction. Coefficient of friction. Wala ni siya unit because if you divide this, force is in Newton and normal reaction is also in Newton, then they cancel out. This because mu is just the coefficient of friction. It's the measure of how more the friction or how less the friction between two surfaces, kung mas tapot ba na siya, mas rough ba or mas smooth. Just like when you have sandpaper versus paper alone. When you rub two surfaces of papers, diba mas smooth siya. Unlike if you rub two surfaces of sandpaper, diba? Muna siya, inana na siya ang coefficient of friction. And then the normal reaction, of course, for example, if you have a box that's lying on the floor or a horizontal surface, if this is the weight of the box, the normal reaction is perpendicular to the surface. But if in incline, gaana ang surface, muna imong weight, diara gyapon dire ang normal reaction. Gaana. So nanay component na lang sa weight ang mo counteract sa normal reaction. So of course, there are these types of problems that includes friction. There is this friction on incline, friction on wedges. So yan eh. Ang wedges has mechanical advantage. Basta man na siya wedges. And belt friction, of course. I hope I can make separate videos on how to solve this friction on wedges and belt friction. What are these? And for this video, just an overview, kanira sa atong isolve the forces, the friction on inclined plane. So na siya. Given with this mu, which is the coefficient of friction, 0.3. And by the way, coefficient of friction, nara na siya in between 0 to 1. Di na siya pwede mula pa o dako kayo 1 kapin or less than 0 kapin or negative ba. Basta nara siya in between 0 to 1. So FYI lang. So in this problem, we are asked unsa kuno ang force P nga mo help sa friction, this friction that prevents the box from sliding down. So, diba? This box has a component that makes the box slides down. So aside from this friction that supports this box, unsa daw value sa P para makapugong ani? So to do that, by the knowledge we learn in the forces that are concurrent, and then the sum of the forces in X, itong equilibrium on a particle, we solve this by, of course, decompose or breaking down this to its components. And then also, the knowledge we learn from the inclined planes, that if whenever there is an inclined here, an angle between the horizontal and the inclined plane, kining normal daw dire, ano siya? This perpendicular, this is normal, of course. Normal reaction sa plane, ano siya? And then the angle between the weight or kani siya, any force directly downwards to the floor equal to the angle here, 30 degrees. If wala mo kabalo kung ano ning siyang na equal, I have a separate video here in this channel explaining why these two are equal. So with that, we can say that this component here is 200 sine of 30 because that's opposite the angle. And then this one is 200 cosine, this component here, 200 cosine of 30. So by the equilibrium, since there is no movement, there's no, wala dapat movement in the X or in the Y. Let's say first that this is the X axis and this is the Y axis. Kailangan wala yung movement in the X or in the Y. So sum of the forces in the Y equals 0, let's say. Therefore, 200 cosine of 30 is equal to this normal reaction. This is the N. So N is equal to 200 cos 30. Ano siya, right? Forces going down is equal to forces going up. So, kaya na may lain mo na siya. Normal reaction is equal to 200 cosine of 30. Now that we have that N, from the formula of friction, we know that mu times N is equal to the friction. So, the friction, di, is equal to 0.3 times 200 cosine 30. Ano naman itong gisolve na yung friction? Because as we sum all the forces in the X, para kabalo na ta, anidaan, so that usa nalay atong unknown, which is the P we're looking for. So if we sum all the forces in the X, that's equal to 0 to prevent motion, no net force. That would be P plus force of friction, P plus the force of friction, that is equal to 200 sine of 30. These are the only forces acting in the X direction, as you can see that. Duha po towards upward, up the incline, and then usa going down. The component, the weight, is equal to 200 sine of 30. So with that, substituting this value, 0.3 here, 0.3 times 200 cos 30 here, we can now get what the value of P the problem asked us. O, diba? Inani lang ang friction. Nani ang common problem nga inyong mahibalag sa friction problem. So, I think that's it for this video, guys. And if you got something here, some knowledge, I'm glad to hear that. And if you have questions and suggestions, just comment down below. And please like this video, share, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you, and peace out.